Hey, you are listening to the Fridayatsix Startup Berlin show. Every last Friday of the month, people come together at 6 at a Berlin startup, have a look around, listen to the story of the CEO, and then at 8 there is this open to all public radio show with live music. Today, Lee Sanders and band. So give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for this very special band here on the other side of the office. And let me explain something about us. What are we about? Maybe you've been hearing about some serious startup businesses in Berlin. Pretty famous names such as Crowdpark, Zalando, Wooga and SoundCloud. But there's a lot more. So since the summer of 2011, we're going into offices of startups, move some tables aside, and just start broadcasting live like we're doing right now. And tonight, we're here at the Brunnenstrasse 9A at EyeEm, the photo sharing company. Thank you, EyeEm. Thank you, Ramzi Risk, for having us. And I think you have a very nice office. It's beautiful. It's close to the Rosenthaler Platz, you know, in Mitte, where all the magic happens. So you want to say something about that magic?
The magic of Rosenthaler Platz?
Your magic. The magic.
Our magic.
Yes.
We're all about the magic.
I
mean, it's good to have you here again. When we met last time, it was your second show?
It was my second show.
It was your second show, and it was our second month, I think. So things have changed a lot for both of us, I think. You've got business cards.
I've got business cards, yeah.
Which is freaking awesome. And we've got a great team and a product that keeps getting better and better.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about everything what you and this company is about later on. Our second guest is Gunnar Berning of Twego, a brilliant startup that recently won the German Diversity Prize. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Twego.
Thank you.
Is that all you have to say, or?
No, I'm a little bit shy.
You turn red, yeah, indeed. Why?
Yeah. No,
you were with the Bundeskanzlerin at the stage.
No, she was not there. She was just
you
on the screen.
You were on Facebook with. I stood next to Angela Merkel.
No, that's not true. That's not true. No, I was actually was in the western part of Germany where the event took place, and Merkel really won the prize, but she wasn't there. She had more important things to do, and just the small startups, and Google came. So.
Yeah, but it is a very cool prize, or are you also going to deny that?
No. It was cool. We were very happy about that. So we were, we have people from 12 different nations working at Twego, and that was cool. So
our third guest is Holger Spielberg. He's head mobile and innovation at PayPal Germany. Am I saying that all correctly? What your title is about?
You're saying it correctly.
Oh, okay, cool.
Also representing Brandenburg here, actually, Drei Linden, Kleinmachnow. From if you're outside of Berlin, we always say we're based in Berlin because it's so cool.
Yeah.
But if you're in Berlin, it's just 45 minutes S-Bahn ride.
Just 45 minutes. Okay, we're never going to do the show there. We'll have some.
You should come. It's nice.
We'll have some tech gossip in this show. Discuss the rocky life of a startup versus the easy living of a corporate hero. And as always, there is no biz like showbiz. So I would invite would like to invite Lee Sanders and his band to start playing their first song. Thank you.
Time and day you find relief. All right now the world makes sense somehow, like you were born into something new. touch, all your skin's on fire. Wake a dream, you feel you still alive. Alright now, the world makes sense somehow. Like you were born into something new. There's nothing more to do. Just wait until it's true. Oh, close your eyes, I'm on your side. Let go into something new.
Thank you, Lee Sanders, for this excellent first performance. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, and I also want to thank my band colleagues. This is Eric on the keys.
Hi. Eric on the keys, ladies and gentlemen.
And the guy in the background is Dr. Robert.
Dr. Robert,
yes.
Wow.
Proud to have him here.
We're going to hear 3 more songs from you. So yeah, thank you for this moment. So guys, talking about here at the table about what's going on in the Berlin startup scene at this moment. Yesterday, there was a Twitter developer event at the Poppelallee here around the corner. Everybody, the 3 of you attended it? Yeah, Gunnar? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, what was it like?
It was for me. It was a little bit too techy, honestly. But the first 2 presentations were very interesting. So about what Twitter is looking for, and they want to build an ecosystem around Twitter. And so I found that very interesting. In the end, it became a little bit too techy for me, but it was good for networking.
Because Twitter is reaching out to the rest of the world, starting local offices. Also here a small one in Berlin, and they thought, well, we do it in several cities, and in Berlin actually it got sold out very quickly. What does it say about the Berlin startup scene at this moment, if it says something about it?
Yeah, I think there is a hype, and for me this hype is very positive because, I mean, for example, we get a lot of PR just because of this hype. So people magazines from all over the world are writing about the Berlin hype,
and for such a long time, for a year, it keeps on going.
Takes some time, but and in Germany, you know, people started writing about that, and now it's becoming a little bit slower. But you know, it's been fueled by new news with Atomico investment in Six Wunderkinder and all this kind of Aston Kutcher again, and so it's being fueled by another news, whatever, every few weeks, and so. It's moving on.
Because new things occur, like the Atomico investment, Six Wunderkinder, the Wunderkit product got out. Rams, what do you think of EyeEm? What do you think of the Wunderkit?
The product or the team or what the launch?
The Wunderkit is the product.
The Wunderkit, yes. Okay, not the Wunderkinder. All right, yeah, fair enough. I think it's got a lot of potential. I mean. They're trying to do something very challenging, which is make productivity social, which in reality it is. I mean, working means communicating, means doing stuff together. But it's.
But do you want to see what your friend is doing all the time?
Well, it's not about what my friends are doing. I mean, for that there's Twitter and there's Facebook and there's EyeEm and there's 10,000 other things. It's about what people are doing that is relevant for me, for my work, or for stuff that I have planned. So, like I said, I think there's a lot of potential there.
Okay,
And
but is
I
it
have to say-
already in this product, or is there a lot of potential in the idea?
Well, the idea, definitely lots of potential. The product, from a technical level and from a sort of visual level, it's a very beautiful experience. I mean, there is a bit of this whole empty room thing. I mean, unless my entire team is on there, it doesn't really make sense for me that much to use it. But I've been using it a little bit, and I like it.
Yeah, so Holger, other news is that Gitsy, the marketplace for authentic experiences, got $1.2 million. Amongst them, investor Ashton Kutcher, who already invested in. Some people laughing. Oh, we talk in Berlin all the time about this guy. Yeah, but he's a famous movie star.
He's going to move here, I guess.
He's going to move here. Well, well, far away from Demi Moore. That's important.
You said that.
Yes. Okay, I said it, of course. But what do you think about that news? You know, another startup raising over $1 million. In Berlin.
I actually, yeah, that's good news. You talked about the hype before. You have to reach a hype at a certain point, but I think what has been going on for the last 1.5 years, I guess, in Berlin is that the base has been solidified. That you have investments like that, and they weren't available really. 2 years ago, you could have business angel investments of 200K, 500K, but on a significant amount of money shows that there's a base layer here of talent, and also what you see, the pillars coming in here. Twitter, I mean, PayPal has been here, eBay basically, Google has research here, Daimler has research here, Deutsche Telekom has research here. Lots of talents, lots of technology here. Now the money is coming. That's a very natural thing.
So, but I don't think that...
this is Gunnar of Twego, by the way, radio listeners. Yes.
I don't think that is so unusual to get $1.2 million. I mean, that's 900K euros, and which is a little bit a bigger seed round. They have a good idea, they have a great product, so I think that's quite fair. And if you compare it with the States, it's probably nothing. So.
Oh, okay. Wow, what are you saying now? That it's still very small here in Berlin?
No, but I mean, if you want to compete, I mean, if Berlin is really the number 2 behind the Silicon Valley, then we have to get closer to these investments, even with a seed round, if you have a good idea. Yeah. And I think that's very important for the startup ecosystem here in Berlin. Yeah.
So how are your talks going with the investors? Because you're now also talking to investors.
So our talks are doing quite well. So always everything takes a little bit longer than expected. That's kind of the case for every startup, but. I think we are very happy, and I think we will close within the round within the next weeks. Within the next weeks, okay. And can you also say who is going to close that deal with you? No. No? Okay.
There would be a long delay after that.
Okay, because Rams, I also asked you guys all before if you could name one other startup in Berlin, because a lot of people outside of Berlin are also looking at this show. Which other name out of the very famous ones can you mention that you think in Berlin has a lot of potential?
Well, I think of the ones that are getting some press, Readmill has a really good product. Of the ones that
that is social reading.
That is social reading on the iPad. I think Tweak TV is onto something big. Social TV is going to be really, really big. I think Moped, despite their CEO, are actually a great product. They have lots of potential.
Skylar
is right over there. So I just thought I'd piss him off.
Come over, Skylar. No, you don't want to. Okay, because
no, but seriously,
Skylar,
that's one thing I use actively, and I like that. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I also like to announce we actually are raising. We have closed a round yesterday with Justin Bieber, who has twice as many Twitter followers as Ashton Kutcher. So that's. 20 million followers.
Okay, but you were joking, right? Because
we go with
joking.
I think in 5 minutes it will be at Reuters or something. I mean, people are watching. Eh?
That's all right. Hype is good.
Hype is good. Okay, but this is not true. This is a
joke.
Rumor.
This is a joke.
Okay. Holger, any companies that you are following in Berlin that haven't quite reached that level of being famous yet?
Yes. I got to name 2 actually. One is Orderbird out of Kreuzberg. They're extremely focused, very good team, good product. And
what do they do?
They have basically an iPad-based cashier systems for restaurants or for the retail industry, maybe in the future.
Mobile payments.
Mobile payments.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. Well, that's why I know them pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
And
this is the head mobile payment.
We have
PayPal.
no investment in them, so I just want to mention
very
that and
nice of
disclaim
you.
that.
Yeah.
And the other one is also somebody, a company I've been involved in actually for a long time is Barku. And they're pretty successful in their own rights. I think numbers are actually quite nice for them, but also the public press and actually the impact. You saw all the Stern, what was it, Günther Jauch interview, and then afterwards the server crashed. But
that's a couple of years ago, by the way.
No, that was 2 weeks ago.
That was 2 weeks ago. Okay. Barku was at Günther Jauch.
Yeah,
but you don't see them. I see other companies all the time. In the press, but they don't really seem to hype themselves or something like that. Is that part of the strategy? Do you think, or am I the only one who's not watching Günther Jauch? I don't care less. I mean,
well, I think the companies who are hyped are more affine to social networks where you actually have to have a hype. Many people use it. Yeah. And what Barku was doing, they did a lot of good PR and have excellent data they're using in providing product information about it. You can scan basically.
You scan the barcodes.
And they, if they're Vietnamese children were like sewing your clothing and these type of things. Yeah. So I think there's value in this.
Yeah, Ramsey is joking about Justin Bieber, but I guess that when you go to the PayPal office in the States, then there are also a lot of famous people, right? Because you don't need them as an investor, because at PayPal you have money enough. All the money you can dream of, I guess.
Well, there's quite some money from eBay, obviously. But I don't know, famous people. Our CEO just left to save Yahoo, so we'll see how that works out for him. But
did you apply for the job in the States?
No, they didn't ask me.
No, they didn't ask
and
you?
I would have done it for half the money. I can tell you.
Okay, guys, we're going to talk about the main topic today, corporate versus startup, because you have all some experiences in these fields, obviously. But first of all, we're going to listen to some more music of Lee Sanders and the band. So, guys, you're a bit quiet, I think, man. You should maybe make some more noise also for this band. So. Take it away for them, guys.
This one is called Out of Reach. Don't really listen to your words. I don't mind what you may say. It sounds all the same anyway. I'm in a place where you can't go. I'm living there all on my own, all alone. I'm far away up in the sky. There's always sunshine and it never rains. Oh, I'm out of reach. I'm living in my own world. So there's no use in talking, tell me, 'cause I'm out of reach. Yes, I'm out of reach. I might look unhappy, that ain't right. Deep inside, I'm satisfied. I'm smiling all the time. So don't you worry about me. I'm just fine. I'm having fun, spending my time with me. I'm far away up in the sky. There's always sunshine, it never rains. Oh, I'm out of reach. I'm living in my own world. So there's no use in talking to me. There's no use in talking to me. There's no use in talking to
Great. Okay. So corporate versus startup. That's what we're talking about these 12 minutes before we go to some other music. And actually, we have a very interesting setting here because Gunnar Berning, the CEO of Twego, left which big company to start his own startup? Oh, you have. Sorry.
I left Siemens.
You left Siemens.
Siemens in Munich.
Why, as this great, typical German businessman, do you leave a
boring German giant? No, why did I leave Siemens? Because I wanted to change something. And within Siemens, of course, you can change, but it takes way 10 times, 20 times longer. And it's challenging to change within Siemens, which is a challenge by itself. But so I wanted to create my own venture, my own startup with a great team.
Yeah. So Holger, I really want an honest response. I mean, PayPal is corporate, right?
In a certain way, I think it's actually the biggest startup I've ever been in. To be frank.
I read that quote. I prepared also for that you say it's the biggest startup.
That's my own quote.
Yeah, it's your quote, but then you are maybe talking about a mentality. But when you look at structure, number of positions, separate departments, PayPal is corporate, right?
Without making too much advertising for our company, it's actually not that much. Specifically not in Europe. In the US it might be a little bit different. It's much bigger. And there's lots of transition also from the eBay corporation, obviously, and that is a big giant, very clearly.
I want to give in that you are trying to give it a startup kind of image, because can you explain what do you do, why you think that PayPal Germany is a startup? In which kind of way are you changing things to accomplish that?
Let me take a step back here. Actually, I spent 15 years in the Silicon Valley. In various positions and various companies, big ones and small ones which became really big and went public and all these type of things. And when I came back to Germany to marry my wife, I didn't really know what I was trying to do here. I didn't want to be in a big corporation, and I started to work on my own little business venture here in Berlin. So we started with a friend, a venture fund. Unfortunately, through a tragic death of my partner, we stopped that endeavor, and I basically, through a number of steps, actually ended up at PayPal. And I found myself in an American company, which felt like a startup, and I don't really have to worry about financing every 3 months. And actually, what drives me is really, there's no really English word for it. It's called Gestaltungsspielraum. If I can change something, if I can actually do something, and I have the power to do it, that's actually what I mean with startup. In PayPal, you have ideas, you can drive it, and yes, you still have to ask for money, but it's basically there.
Yeah.
And if you convince your executives, and that's a very straight line to our top executives, actually, you get that decision and you can actually make it happen.
So
cool.
Gunnar and Rams, do you believe this when he says, our company acts like a startup? Do you believe him?
I think that's possible. I mean, I don't know about the inner workings of PayPal, but I think it's possible to get bigger and still have a startup feel. I mean, Google shows that to a certain extent. The teams within Google, they do have this space to play around, to experiment, to do things, and that's a big part of startup life.
And I mean, it's not a black and white thing. I mean, this is not only is a super tanker Siemens on the one hand, and the fancy startup is 5 people on the other hand. There's a lot in between, and with all pros and cons. I mean, just going for a startup is very risky. You know, the people think, hey, we can do everything without any processes, without any structure, and this doesn't work either. And on the other hand, the big giants, with only processes, they kill every new idea. This is also really bad. And if you manage to be in the middle, be it with a 30 people company, or I don't know how many people are working with PayPal, then it's cool. I mean, this is best of both worlds.
Of course, there's no black and white, but could you say from a security point of view that that it's worse to work on a startup than in a big company?
Yeah, from a security point of view, it was crazy to leave Siemens. I mean, if you're once working for Siemens, your life is done in terms of financial stability and all that kind of stuff. But it's not that much.
And then in Germany, I mean...
Yeah.
You know, because Germans are usually more risk averse than for example, the Americans, right?
Yeah, I agree, but it depends of what you want. I mean, some people are very happy if they have their stable environment, they don't want to change, and that. But if you really want to create something big, something whatever, something global, then it's probably not the best thing to stay at Siemens.
So maybe I can conclude that everybody here then at the table thinks that, you know, working in a startup or in a company with startup mentality, that is the best thing you can have, right? So everybody agrees here at the table?
It's a personal thing. I mean, there's no black and white. It's, you know, more risk, maybe more flexibility, but definitely more stress. If you're employed, I mean, I used to be employed as well, and when you're working, you know, as a consultant or as a service provider for someone like telecom, you go work at 9, you go home at 5, and then on the weekends you're free. And when you're working in a startup like EyeEm, you're getting emails at 4 in the morning from your server complaining about stuff, and then you have to get up at 4 in the morning and then look at it. So it's I think it depends on the person. I think it really depends on the person and what you sort of have in mind.
Yeah, because also a lot of people outside the startup scene, of course, listen to this show. Maybe some people, you know, who never thought about starting a startup. But could you then really honestly say, you know, if you have the chance, you know, you should go for it? Because there are, Holger, some, of course, disadvantages of being in a startup, right? Because you were mentioning that in a startup, you always have to, you know, in the back of your mind, you have always, okay, a lot of responsibility. Do I get, you know, more funding to go on and on and on after 6 months?
Well, I believe the security is always a relative thing, right? As you mentioned, it depends on what stage of life you are in as a person, and you can be at risk at a company when you think your workspace is safe, and it isn't, and you get fired because the company is closing. It's not safe at all, and if you are at a startup, then you at least know that it is risky, and you have to be a certain type of person. To be in a startup, you have to dig in, you have to take responsibility, you share the responsibility, and what most people can't really live with, and that's something I actually also have inside my organization, is many people can't deal with uncertainty. I'm responsible for innovation. I strive on uncertainty. If there is a road I haven't seen, I go for this one. There are many people say, no, I like to be in my framework, and I'm really striving within my framework. You need these people as well, and you need these executors. Not everybody is an entrepreneur, and you need executors as well. And you will find these good people in startups as well as in corporations, in my experience.
And I would like to jump on that. I mean, with Siemens or Deutsche Telekom or whomever, all the big ones, you have a perceived safety only. It's not a safety anymore. I mean, you have to change your job. You have to change location every 3 years from now. And nobody's. I mean, everybody can be fired today. You have the next restructuring program because whatever comes out of the economic situation or so, and so it's. Basically, it's not safer or much safer than a startup, but it's different, I would say.
And I think actually one thing that is for me the favorite thing about being in a startup is that you're very close to the product, and you're very close to the consumer. Whether be it, you know, if it's a social or whatever, you are actually talking to the people who are using your product day by day, one to one. And you know, there's nothing more frustrating when you're working for a big corporation than running a project for 2-3 years, which I had, and then at the end having to redo it again, and then they're trying to redo it again, and at some point you're like, but I mean, I've been working on this and there's nothing to show for it. And this is also for me it's my favorite part of being in a startup. And I'd like to actually jump back to what you mentioned about Gitsi, and that is the big investment. That is actually why it's there for. They don't need $1.2 million for today and tomorrow and the next month, but what they're doing is, and what actually investors are finally doing in Germany is looking at how they do it in the States, which is if you give them enough money to actually just go, you know, roll with it, play with the product and build it up in 6 months, in a year and a half, without having to worry about where they're going to get the next bridge and where they're going to get the next 50,000 from this investor and from that angel, then they can build something spectacular. And I think that's the advantage that the States had over us. And I think this is where we're sort of picking up and catching up very quickly.
So it's getting less insecure. So it's, you know, that the adventures keep on coming towards the startup scene.
It's always insecure because at the end of the day, if your product isn't good, it's not
less
good.
than before.
But this allows you to actually build the product as you want it, and not as your budget and as the time constraints limit you to.
Yeah, and what do all these developments mean? Because we're almost going to music, and then we come back at this topic. But what do these developments mean for Germany as a country where, you know, where still the idea is that people are risk aversive and not likely to start a startup? And where do you see it going, Holger?
I think the risk averseness is mentality, but it also is a cliche at the end of the day. But what you actually see, I think it's a good development for Germany for a couple of reasons, or for a number of reasons. The first one is really we are building a solid base on how to finance things. I'm totally to your point. It's not the stingy investor who brings you success. It's the one who keeps the problem of financing off your back and gives you room for period of time, of course with specific milestones you have to meet, but gives you basically carefree financing. You're not getting rich, but carefree financing for a period of time to show your results, and you don't have to worry about it. When I came back from the US 2008, what I didn't like here is when they call it Existenzgründer, and when Existenzgründung support was only given to people who come out of unemployment and these type of things. I always believe in investing in ideas, not filling somebody's refrigerator. If Existenzgründung, not every Existenzgründer is an entrepreneur who has an idea and a vision to follow through. They just want to get money. They should be employed. And we're now shifting really to an entrepreneurial type of financing and the professionalizing of all of this. And the second thing I'm seeing here, over basically since the bubble burst, with the internet bubble in 2001, and I'm old enough to remember actually.
As one of the few probably here in this room.
In this room here, is we have now basically kind of a second generation of entrepreneurs. And when, again, I spent 15 years in Silicon Valley, and when people came from Germany over to learn from what we Germans believe makes Silicon Valley so successful, is because you have 3-4 generations of entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, who did it a couple of times. And we have now these type of guys here who have not only the money, of course, they're giving their money as well, but they're sharing their ideas, they're sharing their network, and they're building. Hack Forward is one of these conglomerates, and these are successful guys, and they have lots of knowledge and lots of experience to show.
Yeah, so we're going to be right back after the music. Hope you're not falling asleep, Lee Sanders. I always check in with the musicians halftime if they're having fun, because
we're having fun.
Yeah, because most musicians are startuppers themselves, right? Startup artists.
Yeah, for sure. We're very new, and we're very young. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, we didn't prepare this question. My fault. Okay, so please go ahead.
There's one thing to say. It's a very quiet song, and it's just we can't play if everyone is talking. So it would be very nice if just for these 3 minutes, be quiet.
3 minutes only. No, maybe 4. Just listen.
Because it's a very quiet one. Thank you. I think of you. They lift me up into the new and travel me through space and time. Up in the air, I'll be fine when I see planes. I think of you and all the things we used to do. in the deep blue sky they go. Oh, I wish I could be one of those. When I see plans, watch the sky and wait till I get high when I see planes.
Start talking again.
No. It's always great to have a totally different atmosphere and vibe in a meeting and in this room, to have a totally different energy. I always find it very inspiring to have cool music in our show. So thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, guys, startup versus corporate. Are there any disadvantages on being in a startup?
Being in, or
yeah. Are there any disadvantages because we're now, preaching the gospel of startups?
How long do you have? It's
Tell me about your day, Rams.
My day today?
Yeah. You said before the show that this was a typical startup day. What happened?
Well, today I think I got up relatively late. 9:30, 10, something like that. I mean, that's not late. It's actually normal, but anyway. I answered, I think, 6, 7 emails in bed, came to the office, and we started working, preparing for this one release that we had. And except it wasn't a normal release. It's, to get a little technical, it's actually a release across all the platforms. So our iPhone app, our Android app, our front end, our back end, because we have a couple of really big things coming up. And basically, you sit down and then you're working on that. Everyone's testing, everyone's giving feedback, everyone has notices things, finds things, and then suddenly it's 6 in the evening and you walk in. And I'm like, crap, it's 6 already. Give me another hour. And then you gave me another hour, and then it started getting crowded, and at some point, I think at some point I just realized that I wasn't hearing myself type anymore because it was so loud, so I stopped. But typically it would have just gone on until 11, 12. Then you go home and you get 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep where you're still thinking about that stuff. You wake up, answer 15 other mails, and that's awesome. That's life in a lot of ways. But the fact that you stop realizing if it's a Saturday or a Friday or a Sunday. That's something you don't have in corporate life, and that's not for everyone. So there are definite downs for people. There's the fact that you get an email Sunday at 4 in the afternoon and you answer it 15 minutes later. That's absolutely normal for a startup. That's absolutely not normal for corporate. And you can see it as maybe with PayPal it's different, but for the telecom, let's put it that way, it's not normal. And you can see that as good, like we do, or you can see that as bad. And so it's all relative.
Do you feel sometimes, alienated from normal life? Really living another life than normal life?
Let's not get metaphysical and esoteric, and this is life. It's the life that you choose, and then you live it. What is normal life? I'm asking you, what is normal life?
I don't have really fixed ideas about that, but I think most people will say that normal life is going to your job at 9 and going back to 5 and then do some sports, and then next day, you wait until it's Friday, and then you have weekend and have free time.
Yeah, but that's when you say you're going to work. You're going to your job, and the purpose of that job is to basically earn money so you can live after that. But when what you're doing is what you're living, then it's completely different. So I'm not doing this for the money. I'm not doing this so I can, buy groceries at night. That's the whole point.
But do you think that most people really do what they like, or that they're just doing it because they have to pay the bills?
I mean, who am I to say what most people are doing? But I think it's a blessing to be able to actually do what you love and live from doing what you love, and that's the whole essence of a startup.
Very nice. That's the essence of a startup. Is that true, Gunnar? Is that the essence of a startup?
Yeah, I would say yes. Though my day looks a little bit different. So I have 2 kids and the wife. So I don't get up at 10 and work until 12. And I try to keep the weekend kind of free, at least, to play with the kids. But yeah, in general, I mean, it's you should do what you love to do, and if this is working and creating something big, this is perfect. There's nothing better than this. And if this is in a startup, it's perfect. If it's not, if it's in a corporate, I know many people in corporates who work just almost the same amount of hours a day as we do. So it's different, but maybe not the normal person in a corporate, but.
What? Because I don't work in a startup. During the week I'm just foreign correspondent
for
Dutch media.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, this is kind of a startup. But it always strikes me that startup people, they have so many downs and ups at one day. It's so volatile, and I think that's also very different from a corporate. You have like peaks every day. Do you experience that?
Yeah, I definitely experience that. Sometimes you don't have you have 2 people at the same time who want to quit your company, and at the same time a very positive message from an investor or something like that. So crazy things happening, yeah, that's part of the startup life, I would say. So but I would say it's more going up and down on a daily basis, not within a day for me. You have days which are perfect, where you have the best results ever and what so on, and you are growing like hell, and then 2 days later, you experience some problems which you have never thought before about, and that's kind of really going up and down, I would say.
Yeah. Holger, what's your typical startup day in your corporate world?
I actually kind of function like a startup. Today was not a typical day because I was working from home because I want to get stuff done once in a while.
That is very startup-y.
Very startup-y. No, I actually learned to get up very early and like 4:30 or something, and then actually go to start doing something at home like you do, not in bed anymore.
Yeah,
but
can I? Because I hear some people in the audience. I think it's my girlfriend, by the way, saying that. No, oh, okay. Saying you get up at 4:30.
Not every day, but most of the time. And
how many days a week do you get up at?
3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Yeah, or maybe,
and you do
maybe
that
5 o'clock.
On purpose.
On purpose, because I feel better because I get stuff done until 9 o'clock, and then all hell breaks loose with emails and meetings. And then you sit in meetings all day. That maybe is not necessarily corporate, but you have to sit there and actually work things out. And there's still paperwork, and they have still answer, customers and these type of things. So you drag your day quite a bit. And I guess the difference really is what between the corporate world and the startup world is everything is a little bit more intense in the startup world. Every impact, negative or positive, actually reaches you. It's almost like if you're on an island and you have to, basically do your own agriculture. You have to grow your own crop and stuff. If you don't do anything, you don't have any food. If you're on a community, you can leverage that a little bit. And in a corporate world, that buffers you a little bit. and it makes life a little bit easier, but also decisions we just made, actually, which is interesting. We come back to startup world. We have number one priority from a corporate development point of view, internal HR development point of view, is work-life balance. We're losing people because of work-life balance, and we have a weekend policy: no emails. You actually have to pay money if you send an email. If you answer an email, you will receive, or if you send an email. And
How much? How much?
It depends on what country you are. It's kind of
okay. No, but
yeah. Just to my team, do not even think of that.
Yeah.
No way.
All right. Go ahead. So, but I guess these type, if these type of trends really become kind of a nightmare for a large number of people, you have to step in from a management point of view and kind of stop that. And
but is this for all people, or only also for customer service?
All European people, all European employees of PayPal, and you can put in an out of office notice that according to company policies, you will answer on Monday if a customer sends you an email.
But if something is down or broken or what?
Well, you mean, we are a bank and we're transacting money, so of course there are people on 24-hour watch and support and these type of things. Just to make sure how
extreme it was.
But for regular employees, that's not necessary to be.
Okay, that's very. Did you know that, guys? Did you know that, Gunnar?
No, I didn't know.
Would you allow your employees?
Volkswagen just did the same thing, and they shut off the BlackBerry service.
Okay, so now Gunnar, because there are some employees of Twego here. Yes, and somebody's waving. Yes. Okay, Sylvia, do you want to have the same thing? You know that you are not allowed to send emails in the weekend. You will keep your job. You know, just. Yes or no? You would like that or not? No. No. You okay? Well, but Gunnar, what do you think of this concrete example of work-life balance?
I would say this is a kind of a typical example for a company which is not a small startup anymore, but not a big corporate. I mean, this is the idea which could happen also at Volkswagen, as you said, or at Siemens, or. But this is quite normal. I mean, at bigger corporations, you have to come up with these kind of things in order to keep the people happy, maybe, because you can't steer PayPal like you steer Twego.
No, but you can also look at it from a point of view that, if you really love your job, what difference does it make if it's Saturday or Friday? You just want to solve the problem.
Yeah, for me that's true. I mean, I completely agree. But I mean, for the average employee of PayPal, maybe it's different because PayPal has more.
They don't want to solve the problems.
Well, you do it like I do. I write my emails without sending them, and I batch them out on Monday morning. I mean, that's.
Yeah, but come on, that's crazy. It doesn't disprove that it's crazy, such a thing.
I mean, email is something else. Email is not loving your job. 90% of emails are a waste of time. And there's so many things going on with people saying, I will only answer in one line, or I will only answer if there's a reason to answer, or you just answer in the headline. I mean, it is a known waste of time. So,
but not everything is necessary to answer on it during the weekend. I mean, and. As I said, it's different with a larger startup, quote unquote, than in a smaller one. I mean,
I think it's we can debate on this, after the broadcast, but I think it's an example of where people draw a line because you say still that you are a startup, but this merger would never occur in startups, I guess. So maybe we have to discuss this thing later.
We're going on break because I wanted to come back to a point you made earlier. What is the disadvantage
of course.
If you go away from a large company, and I did that when I left Daimler, is you leave behind an established brand name and you have to make it on your own as a person, really, and nobody listens to you, and you have to really be in people's faces to tell your story or find a way of getting on the radio, on TV, because you don't open the door by a brand name anymore. When I used to be employee at Daimler, door just opened because of your business card, and when I left there, I noticed, oh my God, I have to tell a better story because they need to listen to me and not to the brand name anymore. And as a startup, you have to make a name on your own first.
You're obviously into startups. Yes,
I believe the big advantage is if you have been working for a corporate, you can really pick the best of both worlds, and not many people have this huge opportunity. I think it's, for me personally, it's a huge advantage that I know how a company is running this processes and what process do you have, and now I can pick the ones who are really helping us. And of course, the startup doesn't need many processes, but they are helping at some point. Whereas just people or entrepreneurs who haven't had the experience are just moving into the wrong direction. And so for me, it's perfect to pick the best of both worlds.
Okay, very short question, short answer. I hope, you know, if you're now a student and listening, first corporate or right away start your startup?
Right away startup.
Okay.
Because you learn best. I mean, you
okay,
never
so
learn
what
more.
you said before is also maybe because you did it, and or no, I'm joking. I mean, you can learn something in a corporate. That was the point, I guess.
For sure. But
it's not
I never
total
learned
waste of
faster.
time.
I never learned faster than I was doing at Lycos Europe, which was a big startup, basically.
Yeah, okay. Lee Sanders. Where's your next performance? Where can people go to see you perform even more?
Oh, yeah, the next one is on 15th of February in the Dazzle Dance Club.
Where?
It's a Dazzle Dance Club.
Dazzle Dance Club.
Yep.
Okay.
It's in the Eberswalder Straße.
Ah, okay.
Right there at the Eberswalder Straße. No one knows it, but it's a very cool place. We're gonna play there.
How is that possible?
What?
No one knows it? That's not a logical combination.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like there's just live music. Once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And so the people only go there if they want to see a specific band, you know.
Ah, okay.
So there's you can't go there just you have to go there for a band.
It's for people who really know what good music is.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay. Now,
especially on the 15th of February.
Yeah.
You know.
15th of February in the Dazzle Dance Club.
Yep.
And now performing for us live their last song, Lee Sanders.
Yeah.
Take it away.
This one is called Without You. Sometimes it feels like you're my mom. It seems the more I try, the more I fail. So I gave up the fight. I just say, yeah, you're right. Now you're the one that I depend on. You're the one who makes the choice for me. You're the one I better don't disagree. Oh, what would I do without you? Oh, I don't mean to fight, but it is late every night, and I just want to rest my head to sleep. But all you do is watch TV and tell me which room I should clean. It seems the more I try, the more I fail. Oh, so I gave up the fight. I just say, yeah, you're right. Now you're the one that I depend on. You're the one who makes the choice for me. You're the one I better don't disagree. Oh, what would I do without you? But don't you get me wrong, I didn't mean to offend you with this song. To be honest, I don't believe that I'll be the one I am without you. Oh, I wish I could just be the one you want me to be for so long. 'Cause you got me on the run. Sometimes it feels like you're my mom. It seems the The more I try, the more I fail. So I gave up the fight. I just say, yeah, you're right. And now you're the one that I depend on. You're the one who makes the choice to make. You're the one now. I better don't disagree. Oh, what would I do without you? Oh, what would I do without you? Oh yeah. Let's take it away. Thank you. Erle Krüger und Dr. Robert. These are the guys.
Thank you so much, Lee Sanders and band. And at the 15th of February, they're in the Dazzle Dance Club. So definitely go there. And the name of your website for people that they can look it up? Sorry?
I don't have to tell it. It's like just facebook.com and Lee Sanders. But I got condoms here, and on these condoms it's printed, so I can.
Guys, he has got condoms.
I can bring it.
Yeah. This is. Is this cool or strange? I'm just a bit. It depends on the size, maybe.
Is it in the packaging or the condom itself?
Yeah, this is a very cool end of the show.
There should be no surprise for a Dutch guy, right?
Okay. Well, Lee, if you go around, we are going to close the show. Okay? Oh. Okay. So actually, Lee Sanders is now throwing business condoms into the crowd. Some people are looking like, what is he
Deutsche
doing?
Telekom.
Yeah. This is definitely startup behavior, yes.
Although the Volkswagen did beat that with their parties. So.
Okay, they have cool parties. Guys, to close the show, Rams, why, where do you get your inspiration from? What does the Ramsey risk clock do tick?
I'm sort of living my dream. I'm building a great product. I'm working with a fantastic team. I'm always talking to people who are actually using something that I've built and that we have built, and that just makes you tick. You don't stop because of that. That's it.
Reaching out, talking to people who use your product, and
talking to people who are using your product, working with a great team that inspires you every day to come and do your best and then try to be better the next day. Fighting with that same team. This is the stuff that drives you every day. That's the beauty of it.
We see here behind you on the wall the text "Now Next" coming up. I won't read it out loud because maybe it's confidential. I don't know. But what's ahead for EyeEm in the next period?
Actually, that's all old stuff.
Oh, okay.
We have a lot of really, really big things coming up. Most of them I won't talk about today.
Okay.
But starting early next week, end of next week, end of February, end of March, the next 6 to 8 weeks are going to be really, really big. So and I mean that's the beauty of it. We basically have a fantastic team. Finally, we were missing a lot of pieces, and over the last couple of months we have those pieces.
Yeah.
And now it's really full steam ahead. We're building the product, we're improving it, we're doing what basically making our vision become a reality.
Do we have enough money to keep on going?
Yeah, I mean we were also lucky enough to get investors who understand that you need a little bit of time and a little bit of space.
Who are they?
Well, we founded together with Christoph Mehr, who's our executive chairman, well known in the scene, and we also have funding from Passion Capital from London and Wellington.
Okay.
And and basically, it got us the time to build the vision that we had in mind when we started, and we're getting closer by the minute. So that's more than enough reason to wake up in the morning and run down to the office.
Okay, very cool. Thank you, Gunnar. What makes you tick at Twago?
I think what I really love about this job is that we can really in the position to change something, to change, in our case, the world of working, and this inspires me every day. I mean, this is really my eyes are shining. I mean, this is what makes me go every day to the office and make me work there and
feel
create
that
a
you
team.
disrupt something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
in your case, because I think we haven't explained what Twago is yet, you know, can you explain your own words?
Yeah, just in 2 sentences, it's the biggest pan-European marketplace for online work, so you can hire programmers, designers, marketing experts by whatever reason, from Germany or Italy or around the world, and we are matching so the buyers and the freelancers basically.
Yeah, closing a next round of funding this week. Following week?
No, within the next weeks. Yes.
Within the next weeks.
Within the next weeks, and
some of these VCs are Berlin based, or
might be, yeah, but might be also international.
Okay. Thank you for there you go. Yeah.
No, and with that we are going for the international rollout.
And you're moving into a new office. How many people do you have now?
We have 35 people.
35?
35.
Yeah. Where do you want to be at the end of 2012? How many people?
I mean, we don't. I mean, maybe we want to double, but we don't want to grow that
too fast.
Faster in terms of people, because we have a scalable model and we don't need the growth in people basically. So we can hopefully scale without hiring too many people.
Okay.
That's the idea of the overall marketplace.
Yes. Okay. Holger, what makes you tick? How can you inspire people listening now to, you know, tell us something about your experiences?
Well, what makes me tick is really people and cool things, and what really drives me currently. I'm so passionate about it. Actually, changing how we buy things, how we shop, that empower the user and the consumer, but also make it very easy, make it easier for merchants actually to sell their goods and place their goods. Yeah. So we're really, I believe in the next 2 years that we're going to be seeing more changes in retail and shopping than over the last 20 years.
How?
Because the consumer is very powered. She can get information about products, over the internet, on the mobile phone, can compare prices and all these type of things. And so commerce really needs to get their act together in order to actually sell things in the future. And some of the companies are extremely innovative, and others are not. And we are playing right on the front and center in this whole space. And I venture to predict that within the next 2 or 3 months, you will be able to pay with PayPal in a grocery store in Germany.
Aha!
With your mobile phone, without NFC.
Okay, NFC is over, but in every grocery store.
Not in every grocery store. We got to start someplace, right?
Yeah.
And
so you have signed a deal with a grocery store.
We're
where
working
you
on
can
implementing it right now, and I think it
within
will be
2-3
extremely
months.
disruptive.
Okay.
Yeah. So paying with your mobile phone at a grocery store, maybe even getting so far that you don't have to actually wait on the cashier anymore. You just check out on your own. You scan your items.
But
put
no
it in the
NFC.
basket. Well, we look at NFC, but we're not dependent on NFC like other companies are. And
don't give the corporate answer. Just give the straight answer.
Yeah, we will adopt NFC when there are enough phones out there who have NFC. But
this is what you've been saying for the last 2 years.
That's true.
Yes.
No, actually, I've the last year.
The last year, yeah. Well, okay. But I hear you. Okay, so deal with a grocery shop for mobile payments, which is some big news here in the Fridayatsix Berlin Startup Show. So I would like to thank you all three for coming to the office of EyeEm. I think it's very inspiring talking to you, and I hope we inspired a lot of other people next month. We're back at the 24th of February, and you can stop by, and if you want to know the location for the next show, just take a look at Fridayatsix.de. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming, and see you next time. Play one last song just to finish it up. Do you have one more?
Okay. Ist das ein Fireworks? Weiß ich nicht. Oder irgendwas anderes. Ich weiß es auch nicht mehr. Ich weiß aber nur, wo ich da hindrücken muss.
Spiel doch mal ohne mich, ich setze mich was ein.
Du musst aber alleine anfangen. Okay, there's one more. Hört eh keiner. Du musst anfangen. Wie? Okay.
Können wir machen, aber abseits, aber...
Was? Muss nicht unbedingt sein, ne? It's just too loud, you know. But we don't have to play another one. It's okay. Ah, okay. Okay, then it's cool. Because it's very loud, you know.